the widow's mansion. Some houses die quietly. Their roofs collapse, their windows shatter, and slowly they fade into dust. But there are other houses that refuse to die. They linger, watching, breathing, waiting. On the outskirts of a forgotten town, there is such a place. Locals call it the widow's mansion. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than a ruin. The iron gates lean like broken teeth. The windows are hollow, black, like empty eyes. Ivy twists up the walls, choking the stone, wrapping around the balconies like ropes. From a distance, you might think the house is dead. But when you stand before it, when you listen, the silence is too heavy, too deliberate. Like the house itself is holding its breath. People in town don't speak of it. If you ask, they'll turn away. Some will whisper, but only when the night is bright and the windows are locked. They'll tell you about strange lights flickering in the upper rooms, long after midnight. About the sound of a woman weeping, drifting down the hill on the wind. And about a figure, tall, thin, draped in black, standing motionless on the balcony. Those who have seen her say she never moves, never speaks. Her face is always hidden behind a veil. But her presence, it seeps into you, a cold that crawls under your skin. The stories warn of one thing: never look too long. Because if you do, she'll notice you. And once she notices you, she will follow. This is the story of the widow's mansion. For years, the widow's mansion sat empty, too heavy with stories for anyone to dare. But every town has its skeptics, and every generation has its dreamers. When a young couple, Mark and Anna, discovered the property was for sale, they couldn't believe the price. A sprawling mansion, acres of land, grand staircases, marble floors, all for less than a modest apartment in the city. Superstition, Mark laughed as he signed the papers. Just old ghost stories to scare children. Anna wasn't so sure. She noticed the realtor's uneasy smile, the way his eyes darted toward the floor when she asked why no one else had bought it. He only muttered something about bad luck and quickly changed the subject. When they finally arrived, the mansion loomed above them, silent and suffocating. For just a second, she thought she saw movement, something pale and quick sliding along the banister. She blinked, and it was gone. They unpacked what little they had and tried to make the cavernous rooms feel like home. As night fell, the silence thickened. It wasn't peaceful silence, but the kind that presses against your chest, making each breath feel louder than it should. Mark opened a bottle of wine, trying to laugh off the unease. Anna pretended to laugh with him, though her hands trembled slightly as she lifted her glass. Outside, the wind rose. Branches scraped against the windows like fingernails. Somewhere deep in the house, a door creaked shut on its own. They told themselves it was just the wind, but when Anna glanced at the staircase again, she couldn't shake the feeling that someone else was already inside. The first night in a new home is always unsettling. Every creak, every shift of the walls, every hum of the wind feels louder, heavier. But inside the widow's mansion, those noises didn't just feel louder, they felt intentional. Mark and Anna set up their bed in the master bedroom, a cavernous space with tall windows shrouded in heavy curtains. The air was colder here, as if sunlight hadn't touched the room in decades. The wallpaper was peeling, and the once ornate furniture lay beneath sheets of dust. Still, they tried to make it theirs. Mark joked about the charm of old houses while Anna forced a smile, but both were secretly waiting for dawn. Around midnight, Anna stirred. She wasn't sure what woke her at first, the chill in the room or the sound. Footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. They came from the hallway, just beyond the bedroom door. At first, she thought it was Mark, but when she turned, she saw him beside her, sound asleep. Her heart froze. The footsteps dragged across the floorboards, back and forth, as if someone were pacing. She held her breath, straining to listen. Each step echoed too long, as though the house itself was amplifying the sound. Finally, she shook Mark awake. His groggy confusion turned to sharp alertness when he too heard the noise. "Probably the house settling," he whispered, though his voice betrayed doubt. He grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the door. The steps stopped. He opened the door slowly, the hinges moaning like a wounded animal. The hallway was empty, blanketed in shadow. Dust floated in the beam of his flashlight. There was no one there. Mark exhaled, relieved. He turned back, only for the footsteps to start again. This time, they came from above, from the floor directly over their bedroom. The sound was heavier now, almost dragging, as if something burdened with weight moved across the ceiling. Boards groaned and snapped under invisible pressure. Anna clutched the sheets, trembling, while Mark stood frozen, his light flickering. "Attic," he muttered, though neither of them believed it. Then came another sound. A woman's sob. Soft at first, distant, then rising into a sharp, strangled wail that seemed to echo through the very walls. It wasn't just sorrow. It was rage, grief twisted into something inhuman. Anna covered her ears, tears welling in her eyes. Mark slammed the bedroom door shut, locking it though he knew it would do no good. The cries slowly faded, leaving behind only silence. But the silence was worse, because they could feel her now. A presence in the room, watching, waiting. The air grew colder still, so cold their breath came out in clouds. They didn't sleep again that night. They only lay awake side by side, eyes fixed on the ceiling, praying for morning. The next morning came gray and silent. Mark and Anna sat without a word. But eventually, she found an old woman sitting outside the bakery, her hands trembling as she held a teacup. Unlike the others, she didn't turn away. "You're staying in that place?" the woman asked, her voice thin but sharp. "Foolish children." Anna leaned in. "Please, tell me why everyone is afraid." The old woman's eyes clouded with memory. "It belonged to Margaret Holloway, a widow. Her husband died in the mines, and after that, she changed. People said she was cursed, that grief ate her alive. She locked herself in that house. Some nights, the neighbors swore they heard her crying. Other nights, they heard her screaming." Anna shivered. "What happened to her? No one knows for certain. One winter, the mansion went dark. Smoke stopped rising from the chimney. When someone finally dared to enter, they found the doors barred from the inside. Margaret was never seen again, but they say her spirit never left. The house, it keeps her. When Anna returned, she told Mark everything. He forced a laugh, but it rang hollow. "Just stories," he muttered. "Legends to scare people away." But that night, as the wind rattled the shutters, Anna watched her husband's face in the candlelight. His bravado was gone. His eyes darted to the corners of the room, to the shadows that seemed to stretch and breathe. And when the sobbing returned, low and broken, floating through the walls, Mark didn't try to explain it away. He just whispered, "She's still here." For a few days, Mark and Anna tried to live as if nothing was wrong. They cleaned the halls, opened the curtains, even placed fresh flowers in the dusty vases. But no matter how much they tried, the house resisted. Every corner seemed to sink back into shadow. Every wall seemed to breathe cold air. The footsteps returned each night, sometimes pacing the hallway, sometimes circling the bedroom. The sobbing, too, grew louder, more guttural, echoing through the vents as if the entire house was mourning. Then came the doors. It started with a slam, sharp, sudden, so violent the glass in the windows rattled. Mark raced down the hall, but the door stood still, unmoving, as if it had never budged. The next night, 3 doors slammed in unison, one after the other, a rhythm that shook the floorboards. By the 3rd night, the entire house roared with banging, as though fists were pounding from inside the walls. Anna begged to leave. "We can't stay here, Mark. She doesn't want us here." But Mark was stubborn. "It's just in our heads. We're tired. We'll get used to it." Still, even he couldn't deny what happened next. They were in the dining room when the chandelier swayed violently overhead, though the air was still. Dust rained down as the great iron fixture swung like a pendulum, creaking louder and louder. The candles they'd lit blew out in an instant, leaving only the pale light of the moon. And then, her voice. A whisper, low and venomous, curling around their ears. They couldn't make out the words, but the intent was clear. "Leave." Anna screamed when the plates on the table shattered all at once, shards flying across the room. One piece nicked Mark's cheek, drawing a thin line of blood. They ran upstairs, slamming the bedroom door behind them, but even there, they weren't safe. The mirror on the wall quivered, then cracked down the center. For a moment, Anna swore she saw not her reflection, but the outline of a veiled woman standing where she stood. Mark tried to hold her, to calm her, but his own body shook. "Tomorrow," he whispered. "Tomorrow we leave." But outside the window, on the balcony, began to turn. The door swung open with a groan, revealing nothing but blackness beyond. And then, from the shadows, she emerged. The widow. Her figure was tall, impossibly thin, draped in a gown of tattered black lace. A veil covered her face, but beneath it, something glimmered, a pale, unnatural light, like eyes that had never seen rest. She glided across the floor without sound, though the boards groaned beneath her as if protesting her presence. Anna screamed, but no sound came out. Her throat constricted, as if unseen hands had wrapped around it. "Stay back!" Mark shouted, brandishing the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness and landed on the widow. For the briefest moment, Her face was visible through the veil. It wasn't a face at all. It was hollow, rotted, a cavern of bone and shadow. The flashlight shattered in his hand. The widow raised one trembling arm and pointed at them. The sobbing began again, louder than ever, shaking the very walls. But this time, it wasn't grief. It was rage, unholy and violent. The bedroom door slammed shut behind her. The windows rattled, the mirrors shattered completely, spraying shards across the floor. The air grew so cold, frost crept along the walls. Anna clutched Mark, tears streaming down her face. "She doesn't want us here," she choked. Mark tried to move, to grab their things, but his legs wouldn't obey. The widow was closer now, the fabric of her gown dragging across the floor like a funeral shroud. She stopped inches from them. Slowly, she lifted her veil. What they saw froze their souls, an endless void where her face should be, a darkness deeper than death itself. The room erupted with a scream, not from her, but from the house itself. The chandelier crashed to the floor, flames burst from the curtains, and the walls seemed to bend inward. Mark grabbed Anna's hand. With a desperate cry, he yanked her toward the balcony doors, kicking them open. They stumbled out into the cold night, gasping for air, as the widow's figure loomed in the doorway behind them. Silent, watching, waiting. The night air hit them like a slap, freezing and sharp. Mark and Anna stumbled across the balcony, their lungs burning, their bodies shaking with terror. Behind them, the widow stood framed in the broken doorway, her empty gaze locked on them, her veil fluttering in the rising wind. "Go!" Mark shouted, pulling Anna toward the fire escape. The metal groaned under their weight as they climbed down, hearts pounding with every step. But the mansion wasn't done with them. The windows burst open one by one, shards of glass raining down like icy rain. The sobbing rose again, but now it was everywhere, above them, beside them, inside their heads. The air itself seemed to mourn. Anna's foot slipped on the last rung. Mark caught her just in time, dragging her down onto the overgrown lawn. They ran toward the gate, stumbling over roots and debris, but the ground felt wrong, soft, shifting, as if the earth itself were trying to hold them back. When they reached the gate, it slammed shut with a metallic scream. Mark threw his shoulder against it again and again, desperation fueling his strength. On the third try, the rusted hinges tore loose and the gate flew open. They didn't look back. They didn't have to. The widow's wail followed them into the night, an inhuman shriek of rage and sorrow that echoed through the trees. Even as they reached their car, even as the mansion faded into the distance, that sound clung to them like smoke. Neither spoke during the drive. Anna stared out the window, trembling, while Mark gripped the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles went white. When the sun finally rose, someone to come home. Mark and Anna moved far away, trying to forget. But some nights, when the house is silent and the darkness deep, Anna wakes to the sound of footsteps pacing the hallway outside their bedroom. Slow, heavy, deliberate, just like before.